Hello friends, my name is Emily, I'm the bi, and here are some books off of my bookshelf. That is a sentence that I will probably no longer say. In September, I'm planning on rebranding this channel to just be my name because despite the fact that other people do it very successfully and I enjoy the content that they make and it doesn't bother me when they do it, it bothers me that I want to make book and TV and film content, that I want to talk about and play video games on this channel, that I want to do video essays, that I want to talk about board games and talk about RPGs, and I feel like I can't because this channel is specifically branded as a book channel, and so I'm gonna change that. I'm still gonna do a lot of book content because this is me. I basically haven't posted a video in a while, and part of it is because I've been really busy. I am working from home, but also still occasionally going into the office. Just neat. And I have been trying and failing to write. Also, I'm filming on my phone, not because my camera broke, although the audio, I can't tell if the audio input on my camera is the thing that's fucked up or if the microphone itself is the thing that's fucked up, and I just like don't want to sync sound because that seems like a nightmare. And I know that it is a nightmare because I've had to sync sound before and it's a nightmare. It fucking sucks. It's fine if you're doing it for profit, but to do it for fun, ugh, no thank you. Anyway, I wanted to talk today about Kurt Vonnegut, and specifically I wanted to talk about Slaughterhouse, that's the back, 5, or The Children's Crusade, A Duty Dance with Death. I should have started with this one because it's just, you know, I have it mostly because this is my favorite book in the entire world, written by my favorite author, and it is a book that I will buy multiple copies of all of the time. Clearly, these are not all of the copies I own of Slaughterhouse-Five, they're just the ones that are here in LA because, say it with me now, a good chunk of my books are with my mom in Arizona still. How? It's fine. But it is one of those books that I will always buy a copy of if I don't already own that copy, and sometimes even if I do. So here's the thing with this one. This edition was the first one I ever bought of Slaughterhouse-Five. I bought it to read for extra credit in my junior English class in high school when I was living in Montana. And I love this edition, it's perfect. However, it is fully coming apart and I've had to tape the spine. So this copy of Slaughterhouse-Five doesn't fucking go anywhere. However, I really like it and I want to like maybe spread the love of this book somewhere. So I have another copy of it because I found it and it was extremely cheap, question mark. I don't know, there's not a price in here, but I definitely bought it used because I bought most of my Kurt Vonnegut books used. I think almost all of them. I also really liked this cover. Other than the very famous cover, this one, it's my favorite. The frame maybe changed a little bit, but you don't need to worry about it. Okay, anyway, so I love this cover, whatever. This is the very famous cover, and this is the movie cover, and then I have this cover, which is not that much of a cover. I bought it because I didn't own this version, and also because it's in hardback, and while I am not a hardback hoe, I am very much a paperback hoe. Kurt Vonnegut doesn't write the type of books that ever got printed first in hardback, so finding a hardback edition of one of his books is always a joy, and I will always buy it. Now, I want to talk about that for a second because I have no idea what you think about Kurt Vonnegut, but the only kind of vague notion I had of Kurt Vonnegut was two things. One was a reference in Footloose to them banning specifically Slaughterhouse-Five in the schools. And then the other one was a reference, I think it was a long-running reference, or not that long, but like a multiple reference to Kurt Vonnegut in Supernatural as like a meta reference in terms of like them talking about their lives becoming meta. There was like a Kilgore Trout reference, you know? A thing I didn't understand until I had read more Vonnegut, I think. That I might have seen that before I even read any Vonnegut, so I was very confused by that whole string of references. And even now, I think it's a weird reference because I don't think it makes a lot of sense with the way that they use the reference. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Those were the two points of contact I had with Vonnegut before I read Vonnegut for school. So the first thing I ever read of Vonnegut was from Welcome to the Monkey House, although it was like in our actual English textbooks, which was Harrison Bergeron, which is a short story that is in the collection Welcome to the Monkey House. It is a story set in a dystopia where people are all equal, and they are equal by having disabilities or devices that create disabilities thrust upon them so that no one is ever more beautiful, more athletic, more intelligent, etc. than the person who is the least that in the society. I don't know, it's like such an interesting short story because I think that you can take many things from it and you can read it as like, Kurt Vonnegut must believe XYZ because of this story, but I don't think that reading it as a takedown of socialism, which I think is what a lot of people read it as, is necessarily what Vonnegut believed or what his intentions were with it. But I could literally write essays about the interpretation of that. However, the next thing I read from Vonnegut was Slaughterhouse-Five, which I read for extra credit in my junior English class. So I read the short story when I was a sophomore, and then I again encountered Kurt Vonnegut as a junior in high school in Montana, both of those, which was interesting. It is my favorite novel. It is about a man named Billy Pilgrim who is named thus because he is an everyman, but he has come unstuck in time, and so that's a neat way of telling us that this story is told non-chronologically, which works for me, works for a lot of people. Actually, most Kurt Vonnegut is told non-chronologically. He's not a very chronological novelist. It is about a man who has come unstuck in time, who we're traveling with as he travels through his life. So he will blink and be 17 and living exactly what he did at 17. He'll blink and be 50, and he'll blink and be 20 something and be in World War II. And so we're getting that as like bits of his life. If you were to look at it chronologically, it essentially looks something like this. Billy Pilgrim, we don't really spend a lot of time with as like a youth until he goes and is a soldier in World War II. He's taken as a POW during this time. He is there for the bombing of Dresden, which Kurt Vonnegut was also taken as a POW and witnessed the bombing of Dresden. He is then freed because World War II ends soon after, and he comes home, gets married, becomes an optometrist, has a couple of kids, lives this kind of normal-ish life. He at some point gets kidnapped by aliens because guess what? Kurt Vonnegut writes science fiction. Most of his books are science fiction, but his first two books, among most of his books, are science fiction. Player Piano is about automation, and it's about computers taking over, like automation taking over, like fully taking over. Not just like, we're losing jobs, it's like, no, it like takes over. And then Sirens of Titan, which is a sci-fi masterwork, is literally like about a crew on a spaceship or about a dude on a spaceship. And it's sci-fi. He does the sci-fi. Cat's Cradle, also one of his most famous books, is wholly quotable and extremely science fiction-y. He has written books that aren't science fiction-y or don't have a science fiction premise. However, they are few and far between, and they're good too. So read them as well. But he's a science fiction writer, which I think a lot of people don't either know or take into consideration because he is usually lumped in with literary fiction. That's where you're gonna find him at bookstores, regardless of the bookstore, not in the science fiction section. So guess what? Billy Pilgrim gets kidnapped by aliens. And he is, for many years, kept in a human zoo on the alien planet Tralfamadore, which is populated by Tralfamadorians, who are not the cause of his coming unstuck in time, but witness it, and I think it's kind of the reason they end up taking him, because they're like, we see you, we vibe. And they are a race of aliens who see all of time all at once, so everything is happening all at once, and that's how Tralfamadorians see the world, which I think is fascinating. And then, though I don't think it's specified, Billy Pilgrim ends up coming back home to Earth, where he is killed while giving a speech by a man who told him he would kill him during World War II. But that's Billy Pilgrim's life. It's mixed about, and you learn about it in different ways, in small chunks that make up this whole. A lot of people see this story as a PTSD allegory, which I think is 100% true. It is. It's a book about PTSD. It also is a book with aliens and time travel, sort of, kind of, a little bit. It's very cool. It's also extremely funny. A thing that I don't think people talk about with Kurt Vonnegut enough, if you're looking at it from like an academic point of view, like people who like Vonnegut talk about it a lot, but if you're talking about it from an academic point of view, Vonnegut is also very funny. The two things that people don't talk about when they talk about Kurt Vonnegut academically is that he's a science fiction writer, he is, and he is a humorist. He is. All of his books are funny. Literally even the book about World War II that doesn't have science fiction in it is also very funny. It's also very emotional and did make me cry. So I wanted to talk about Slaughterhouse-Five a bit because of two reasons. One, I'm about to make Patches read it, so I'm going to talk more about it in the future with Patches in particular, which I think is going to be really fun. We're selecting a group of books for each other to read, and one of the prompts was your favorite book, so she's reading Slaughterhouse-Five, and I think I might reread it because it's been a while since I've reread the actual text. However, the second reason I wanted to talk very lightly about Slaughterhouse-Five is because I recently read the new comic from Boom Studios, Slaughterhouse-Five, or The Children's Crusade, which was written by Ryan North and illustrated by Albert Montes. This was a book that I got an eArc of from NetGalley for review, which I wrote my review already. I read it. I think it's a really great adaptation of this. And I think it's a really accessible adaptation. Not that I think this book is inaccessible in any way, because I just think that Vonnegut is one of the most accessible, like, classic authors that I have ever read. Like, and I think all of his books are accessible. And they're weird and funny and like genre-y. I don't know, I just think that this comic is a really great adaptation of it. It does a lot of, obviously, like the story beats, but I also think it does some really cool stuff with playing with the medium of comics, which I really appreciate because I fucking love comics, and I think it does a great job of that. I also think it does a good job of kind of integrating the way that Kurt Vonnegut integrates his own voice into Slaughterhouse-Five. Ryan North has really integrated his own voice into Slaughterhouse-Five. Not a lot, but a fair amount, which I really like. And there's this little section where Ryan North is adapting Kurt Vonnegut, kind of inserting himself in, where it's just like white panels of Kurt Vonnegut interviewing Billy Pilgrim, which I just... beautiful. I really loved those. You know, I think that they've done a really good job of adapting this particular work into a different medium. I would say there have only been a couple of Kurt Vonnegut adaptations outside of novels, and one of them is the film version of Slaughterhouse-Five. This is the only other time that Slaughterhouse-Five has been adapted, was into this movie, which I think is a good movie. Controversial opinion. It's not bad. I own it on DVD. I don't think it's ever gonna come out on Blu-ray because no one cares but me. Also, there is a batshit fucking adaptation of Breakfast of Champions that has Bruce Willis in it that, if you're interested in that, you should see. Wild. It is completely batshit. This book is so good though, and extremely meta. This, I think, other than maybe Timequake, I think Timequake and Breakfast of Champions are probably the two most, like, meta books that he ever wrote. I actually don't even know when this book came out. Wow, I bought this book for $1. Did I really? Wild. This book came out in '73. I actually have a lot more to say about Slaughterhouse-Five, but I think I want to save it for when I talk to Patches about it once she has read it. I just wanted to kind of say that this adaptation is very good. It comes out on September 15th, and if you're interested in Vonnegut, but maybe don't want to, like, invest in, like, a whole novel, which, like, I mean, it's so tiny and so small, but if you don't want to invest in the novel, I would say that the graphic novel is a really great adaptation of this story, and very, like, whole on its own. There's lots of, like, little things clearly that aren't there, but it feels as whole as anything could that isn't the book. I don't know, read Slaughterhouse-Five. Kurt Vonnegut is a very interesting, complicated man and author, and if you have an inkling, you should do it because it's very good.